Hello, fellow Earthlings. Welcome to Level Your Playing Field. I just wanted to make that distinction. The reason I said your instead of the, because your is personal. Yours is constitutional in the sense that you have that right to level your playing field when your life has been trampled on by unconstitutionality or anything that pertains to wrongdoing. I have YouTube videos thanks to another community advocate, Deborah Ulster, who put them on there for me, and her husband, Michael. And I have been speaking against unconstitutionality for over almost 15 years now. 14 to 15 years, primarily because of what occurred in my life, which affected everybody else in the country, every American taxpayer. I wanted to make a couple of announcements. I have tickets for an event at the Palace Theater that's on from June the 5th to June the 20th, but my tickets are for tomorrow at 7:30. Unfortunately, something has come up, and I can't be in two places at once. And if anybody would like these tickets, I have two tickets. They're voucher tickets. I believe it's row K in the theater. And I would like for somebody to benefit. The Piano Man is about a tribute to the music of Elton John, Phil Collins, Freddie Mercury, Billy Joel, and many more. And if you're any kind of if you appreciate any kind of their music, because it pertains to rock and roll and Broadway and it's just a broad spectrum of incredible music. And unfortunately, like I said, I cannot attend because something has come up and I have to be someplace else. But I have two tickets here if you want to call in. I have two tickets. I would like to share with somebody who would enjoy going to this concert. So I will wait and see if anybody calls. I wanted to make another brief announcement. Glenn Ouellette, who is a candidate for mayor, is holding a fundraiser. It's called Spaghetti Feed Fundraiser, Saturday from 2 to 5 p.m. on June the 6th. And it is Doogie's Bar and Grill at 31 Manchester Street, Manchester, New Hampshire. The donation per person is $5. You must pay for your own drinks. You can bring the whole family. Also, please make a campaign donation from $1 to $1,000 to help with the cost of running the Ouellette for Mayor 2015 campaign, Saturday, June the 6th, from 2 to 5 p.m. The RSVP email address is Doogie's Bar and Grill, DOOGIES Bar and Grill at gmail.com. This way they can get an understanding of how many people may want to attend this fundraiser and meet with Mr. Ouellette and answer any questions that you may have. If I have time, I will read some of the comments that are on this notice. But I wanted to address a lot of, I receive a lot of email information, and the way they share it with me, I like to share it with people, especially people that do not have computers. But before I do that, I wanted to give you an update on Janet and Maltano, the owner of 102 Bridge Street, where Sunday Abeck died and Diane Croto died year before last. It's taken her almost 5 months to go to City Hall, to the building department, and sign up for a code of compliance certificate so that an inspection can be made on her property, on that property. And I spoke with someone at the building department today, and they said that there was an inspection scheduled, and I begged them, literally begged them, not to let her get away with any more code violations, because it's already cost 2 people their lives, and the very fact that we have code compliance indicates that there's a certain sense of responsibility. You cannot put human beings in a tenancy situation when there is so much violation of housing codes that put people and other people that may have to go to that property in potential jeopardy, like firefighters, paramedics, and even the police department. So I would ask the powers that be at the building department to finally step up and do the right thing, because it is a necessary right thing to do. People are not cattle, and there are, which is actually quite needed. There appear to be more concern for animals than for human life in this country, and specifically in Manchester, New Hampshire. Nothing should be abused. Nothing. I don't care if you live at a poverty level. If a landlord is willing to take a tenant, and these housing programs that get federally funded monies, taxpayer money, because all of these programs are funded by your tax dollars, then there should be a code compliance factor that must be mandatory. And that the powers that be at these federally subsidized housing programs, if they drop the ball, then they should get a fine, or they should lose their ability to be funded in the first place, because they make their money there. That's where they collect their paychecks. And they use human lives and human rights and tenants' rights and people with disability and people with children and refugees and immigrants who do not know all of the rules and regulations that are there are supposed to be there to protect them in the first place, but have not done so. So please, I'm asking the building department, inspection department, not to drop the ball again regarding this woman or any other landlord in the city that has a long history of non-code compliance and somehow still qualifies for a certificate of code compliance. That's like giving a drunk driver a license to put others in jeopardy. You know, I repeat myself all the time. I don't know how or why this particular circumstance within this community has been allowed to run amok. I've lived here since 1983, and since 1989, I've lived this nightmare. So I know firsthand, and I've gone to people's homes and apartments, and I've videotaped their circumstances. It's been played on the air when we were at M Camp. Do you think the city did anything about it? There are still properties that obscure the view on a corner, let's say like on Pine Street and Brook. There was a property there that has high hedges so high that even though they trimmed the one closest to the sidewalk, the one behind it is this high. And so that people that are going east on Brook Street have to inch out beyond the pedestrian walkway indicator to see if a car is coming so that they can safely get across or make a left. We have the Manchester Historical Society. I've spoken about this year after year, and nothing has changed to fix that. They have hedges that obscure the view of the traffic that's coming from the light at the corner of Hanover and Pine Street. And if it's a low car or a small car, you can't see it at all until it's on top of you. If it's a truck or a pickup truck, you have a better chance. And only a person in a pickup truck trying to get across that street, across Pine Street, has a chance of seeing if automobiles are coming towards them before they can attempt to cross Pine Street. So what is it about the rules of this city that appear to be so lax that nobody is doing anything about it? Nobody seems to care anything about enforcing the rules. Why? Because it's a city building, so the city cannot be held accountable. Just like the doorway at this building, it's a city-owned building, but it's missing a handicap access. I've repeated myself, I don't know how many times over the time that I've been in this building. They remodeled the inside, and there's all kinds of handicap ramps. But try to get a person in a wheelchair or in a walker or with a cane who is very fragile or very frail to pull open that very heavy door and get through it before it slams shut against the back of the wheelchair or the back of the person who may not be able to move as quickly as the door is moving. These are repeated concerns that have received no remedy whatsoever. So it gives the impression that the people that are supposed to enforce these rules, despite their personal prejudices and appearance of blindness towards the need, they don't care. And it appears that they know they can get away with it, so they don't push the envelope. They do not push the envelope. We have so many candidates that are being announced every other day that in some foreign countries, I'm almost sure, and this is just a guess, that our political system is like a funny farm. It's a joke. It's a circus. Every other person is running for the office of the presidency of this country, and not one candidate so far has addressed one of the most pertinent and important violations and frauds that has been perpetrated on the American people, and that is workers' compensation fraud. Nobody wants to address it. Nobody appears to see how important it is. They're talking about cutting Social Security benefits. Social Security benefits are part of Medicare, Medicaid, food stamps, subsidized federal housing, and other programs, QIMBY. They've been looted systematically for years by insurance companies and employers who have been allowed to defraud these programs by their fraudulent denial of a valid workers' compensation claim. And so during this election time, I repeat myself at every show, among other topics that I discuss, topics of concern, topics that are criminal in nature and unconstitutional. And so you have to wonder, is everybody deaf? Is everybody deaf in our political community? And why is it that because somebody grew up with somebody and they all have all of these titles within the community that extend to the state and then to the federal level, that they can get away with anything that they feel like getting away with? It would appear that Mayor Gatzis and Mr. Anagnos are figuratively joined at the hip, so they can get away with anything. They can get away with anything, including not supplying the handicap door that's urgently needed at the entrance of this building. There are so many businesses. You know, if you go to any of the fast food restaurants, they have all these designated handicapped parking spots. And in some, like Burger King, they have tables set up for wheelchair accessibility. But try getting in the door. Try getting in the door. You have the same problem. A person in a wheelchair has to pull that very heavy door and get in front of it before it starts to close. At Wendy's, it's the same thing. At McDonald's, it's the same thing. About 6 or 8 months ago, I was at a Wendy's in Hooksett. And I was sitting at a table. I was waiting for my friend to pick up the order. And this lady was very, her back was very arched, very, it was very curved. She couldn't walk straight. She had a cane. And if she weighed 80 pounds, it was a lot. She was a beautiful elderly lady with a very, very bad back problem. And I had used the door to come in, and I realized how heavy those doors were because there's two. There's one on the outside that lets you into a small foyer, excuse me, and then the other door leads you into the restaurant. And I knew that she was going to have trouble opening that door, so I jumped up and I did it for her. And it made me so angry that this illusion or these contradictions that repeat themselves in every aspect of needed life in an American community where the rules apply but are not enforced, is so visible. A blind person could see it. Some of the public restaurants, some of the public bathrooms in some of these restaurants, it's the same thing. A person in a wheelchair is trying to open the door this way to get in front of the door before it closes. And then trying to get out, pushing on this heavy door to get back out and clear the doorway before the door starts to close. Just think about it. These are beautiful but very frail people. These are fellow human beings from all walks of life, all genders, all disabilities. And it's not just the elderly, it's anybody, anybody. No matter how young or how mature in age they are, they have to battle with these things when they go into these public places. I was at a market basket in Haverhill a couple of weeks ago, and I had to use the restroom. And I couldn't believe the struggle to get that door open, even though it says on the door it's handicap accessible, and it's a huge room that you can get into. But trying to get into it and out of it was almost an impossibility, and I was not wheelchair bound. So I stopped and I asked the manager if they could do anything about it. I don't know if they did, because I haven't been back since to use that bathroom. But there are so many places, banks and businesses, that do not offer an automatic push-button door for a person in a wheelchair. And you know what? All of these expenses are deductible. They're deductible. So why this building does not have a handicap door remains a mystery. And why City Hall has been allowed to get away with it when they own the building. I found this from when the first election where President Bush and John Kerry were running. John Kerry were running for election, and this is photocopies of the American dollar that says, "In fraud we trust." freepress.org, November NOV2 truth.org, thedenvervoice.org, blackboxvoting.org, recountohio.org, communitycurrency.org, the count of the election. So it would appear that no matter how hard how hard or how ethical the constitutional operational procedures expected operational procedures of any and everything that has to do with constitutionality is under threat. Are the voters going to whomever votes, are those votes going to be counted ethically and presented ethically? Is it going to be a full count? Are there going to be people that are not going to be allowed to vote no matter what? That's been going on since the 50s. The constant contradiction is the thing that is most puzzling. The contradictions that exist in the expected constitutional processes that appear to be consistently ignored by all parties. Because I'm an independent, and the only time I change is when I vote for a particular entity who happens to be whatever party they're connected to. I am swamped with emails asking for contributions to support this party and that party. And I live at 200% below the poverty level, thanks to a workers' compensation fraud. So I can't donate. The only way I can donate is by careful scrutiny of a particular political entity that I might believe in, and hope that they step up as they've promised, as so many political entities have promised. And the thing about that is that even if they try, the system is so corrupt that it's like, you know, they're spitting in the wind, in a tsunami-sized wind, because our government has been corrupted since 1776. Actually, before. But those that were outvoted and democracy came to this country, at least on paper. The tricks have been ongoing. The contradictions have been ongoing. This is a printout of 1 month's prescription costs for you, the taxpayer, thanks to my denied workers' compensation fraud. $1,626.92. You multiply that by 23 years, and what do you think you're going to get? Multiply Quimby, multiply federal subsidized housing in all of its non-compliance, and the 200% below poverty level monthly stipend that is sent every month. And it turns into millions and millions of your taxpayer dollars. I don't know who the Inspector General is of Social Security fraud currently, but years ago I wrote, I emailed, I wrote, and I called the Social Security Inspector's Office repeatedly, and I reported the workers' compensation fraud that was looting the programs that subsidize my life and the life of others who were fraudulently denied. He never answered once, not once. And as I've mentioned in the past, in the recent past, when Ron Paul was running, when Dennis Kucinich was running, when General Bradley was running, I handed them bookbinders full of information so that they could open up an investigation, at least preliminarily, to see how it is that these frauds are allowed to happen. that despite the title of the employer, that should not be the yardstick by which these frauds are measured. Mr. Bradley, or General Bradley, left the book right on the bench after he finished speaking at a town hall meeting at the Beach Street School. I never heard from Mr. Kucinich, and I never heard from Mr. Paul. Now, I'm hoping that his son, Rand Paul, might have a more open-minded mindset to look into that, to open that very locked door. I'm also hoping that Hillary Clinton will consider breaching that subject, because Social Security is in jeopardy of being of going bankrupt. If every single one of these insurance companies that have fraudulently denied a valid workers' compensation claim were made to reimburse all of those programs, plus a very hefty fine, maybe we could stem the flow, the tsunami-sized flow of the frauds that have been perpetrated and allowed to be perpetrated by our own government. Hello, you're on the air. Hello, you're on the air. Hello? Hello? John, did I lose her?
Yes.
Is it allowed to call back? Is it allowed to call back?
Anyone can call.
No, I'm asking you, can I call her back? Oh, here it is. Okay. Hello, you're on the air.
Yes. Hi there, Ginger.
Hi, Deborah. How you doing?
I'm calling because you did mention Rand Paul's name.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm calling just to let you know that there's a grand opening tomorrow evening in Manchester for Rand Paul's campaign office.
Okay. And where is that?
And I just wanted people to know that if they'd like to go and support the Rand Paul campaign,
Mm-hmm.
that they can go and get a ticket on the internet under Eventbrite. EVENTBRITE.
Okay.
And if they go there, Eventbrite, and put in the search Rand Paul Manchester NH, they will come to the page where they can sign up and get a ticket.
Okay. Now, it's called Eventbrite, B-R-I-T-E, at what network? At Comcast.net or Gmail?
Just the internet. Put in Google Eventbrite, go to their website.
Okay.
Eventbrite.com is actually what it is.
Okay.
And in the search box, they can put Rand Paul, Manchester NH, and then they'll be able to sign up for a ticket to come to the event tomorrow night at 6 o'clock.
Okay.
So I will be there.
Yeah, and I'm going, when I get home, I'm going to do the same thing.
Great. And so I think with Rand Paul's issues of liberty and justice for all and lower taxes and a level playing field for the common
everybody.
man,
Yep.
and all, working against all these injustices like you speak about. There's half of one, 2 dozen of another. There's no perfect candidate, but we have to get behind somebody.
Well, yeah, we got to open that door, that very locked door.
And we'll see where it goes, and I can't wait to hear the debates and to hear them speak. And maybe someday we can get Rand Paul on your show.
Okay, where exactly is this place? Do you know the physical address?
I believe it's on Granite Street.
Oh, that's right.
Headquarters.
Yeah, you said 500 or 50 Granite Street?
50 it is 50, I'm sorry, not Granite, Bridge Street.
Oh, that's right.
The office will be at 50 Bridge Street in Manchester.
Okay.
So, but you won't be able to get in unless you have a ticket.
No, I know.
So, hopefully there'll be a lot of people, but
yeah.
I think the young people especially, are quite excited about Rand Paul. And
Yeah, it reminds you of when Kennedy was running. You know, hope is always something that stimulates, you know, the younger generations that believe in a candidate, and then it's the downfall. Look what happened to him, and all of the unresolved issues that are now decades old. So I'm hoping that they will, you know, will not be let down this time.
I hope not. So, but we'll see how it goes. And anyway, just want to let people know Rand Paul is having his grand opening at 50 Bridge Street tomorrow evening, which is Friday, the 5th.
At what time?
Of June.
And what time is it?
6 p.m.
Okay. Sounds like a plan.
All right. So take care, folks.
Thank you. Thank
good
you,
luck,
Deborah.
Ginger.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Okay, folks. 50 Bridge Street. Go to go to the website she just mentioned. Oh boy, I didn't have anything to write it down with. Rand Paul. Just look him up on Google. It'll give you the pertinent information. The website is randbright, BRITE.com, and see what happens. See if you can get a ticket. This doesn't mean that I endorse anybody. I just want to go and see what he has to say, and see, you know, see if it's all American as opposed to selectively a selective menu or venue of comments. We have to cover all of the aspects of violation because they're intertwined, they're interlinked from the local to the state to the federal. And the Constitution is supposed to be across the board. It's not supposed to be selective or elective, excuse me, according to the elected official and his or her mindset. And that's the battle that has been that has cost so many citizens so much, because a person holds a constitutional title, but then if he or she doesn't agree that a certain segment of the community or a certain individual or a certain group is not entitled to that constitutional process, that's where the crux of the matter lies. The selectiveness. Let me read you a couple of things here. 4 former CVS employees sue for being forced to racially profile Black and Hispanic shoppers. 4 former CVS employees, all of them African American, are suing the pharmacy chain because they say they were forced to racially profile customers in order to prevent shoplifting, the New York Daily News reports. The employees also claim in their lawsuit that they themselves were harassed because they were Black. The 4 individuals, Sherry Steele, Kurth Polak, Lacole Simpson, and Delbert Sorhando, accused 2 regional managers in Manhattan and Queens of ordering employees to specifically target Black and Hispanic CVS shoppers when scoping out potential shoplifters. When scoping out potential shoplifters. The quartet described what they were told to do as utterly despicable and racist directives, the Daily News explains. The manager who stood accused is Anthony Salvatore and Abdul Salim. According to the lawsuit, Salvatore described how Black people are the prime suspects for store thefts. These Black people are always the ones that are the thieves, Salvatore is accused of saying. He also allegedly indicted Latino consumers too, adding that about a particular CVS location had lots of Hispanic people who steal there, the lawsuit claims. After complaining to management about the racism they say they were subjected to in the workplace, the employees were fired. A CVS spokesperson has yet to respond to inquiries made by the Daily News. So ignorance is astronomical, and is as pervasive as the very air that we breathe. Every human tribe has a certain level of racism that's either practiced or contained or controlled or out of control. So, and it starts even within their own people. The minimalization of the value of a fellow human being, mostly for profit or for control. Black and Hispanic retail workers paid less than Caucasians. A study conducted by the NAACP and Demos, a public policy group, found that blacks and Hispanics are paid less than their Caucasian counterparts who hold the same retail titles. They are at the bottom of the totem pole when it comes to staffers that are most likely to be paid more, promoted, or even given full-time jobs. A study conducted by the NAACP and the public policy group Demos found African American sales clerks, cashiers, and low-level managers are paid the least out of all the racial groups occupying those retail positions. The Associated Press explains both African Americans and Hispanics are paid less than their Caucasian counterparts who hold the same retail positions. Both groups are also less likely to hold management positions. A policy expert from Demos argues that if the workforce doesn't represent America's changing population, then the public won't be adequately served. If workers from Black and Hispanic racial and ethnic categories continue to be systematically excluded, from opportunity, that means that our labor market will be serving less than half the population in a way that's really meaningful for families who want to pursue the American dream. Catherine Ruetschin, I'll spell this for you, Ruetschlin, a senior policy analyst from Demos, said, retail is third on the list of industries that have the most African American workers. Education and health services come before it. But even still, African Americans are paid the least and are not given many opportunities to climb the ladder, the study found. And this, again, you can go to the Associated Press website and you can read more about it. And so, you know, these contradictions just continue to repeat themselves all over our so-called free country. The dirtier the job, the less they're paid. And the world escalates the cost of living. If you want to live in a halfway decent place, the cost of living takes up quite a bit of their paycheck. Then you have food, you have groceries, you have car payments, insurance payments, medical payments, just everyday expenses. The money always runs out. Something is always left unpaid or partially paid. Or a household with two incomes still cannot make it because of the expenses that pertain to that family's needs. And then you have all of these major domos, so to speak, that sit in their very, very expensive office chairs, wearing very, very expensive clothing, and that are allowed to get away with it. And a lot of people that come here, they're so happy to be here that they're willing to pay, that they're willing to work for practically nothing, because they're finally free from the shackles of wherever they came from. And between the language barrier and the inexperience of the American way, they're the perfect victims. They are the perfect victims. And then when you put them in non-code compliant housing, and they run the risk of their children dying, and they don't even know that their children have been put at the risk of dying from lead paint poisoning, indoor air pollution, radon in the soil, poor maintenance habits by the owners, and even poorer operational procedures from rental agencies that oversee the management of some of these less than code-compliant slum housing circumstances. There was a rerun of Sunday Abeg's death on Forensic Files the other day. And every time I see that child's face, it tears me apart. It really does. This little girl never had a chance. She never had a chance. Dead within 30 days of living in an American community. The Live Free or Die state of Manchester, New Hampshire. There is so much violation in this community that it should be what do they call that when the government takes over? It's obscene for a building to decay to the point where it is crumbling, where it is listing. I've told this story a number of times over the years, and I think it bears repeating at this time during election. And you're going to elect another mayor who may or may not be as bad as the one that's currently in office. When I first fell into the black hole of disability, of denied disability, I had to go to the city, and they had this voucher program. So they send you to an agency, and you meet with the owner of one of the owners of this apartment complex agency, and he takes you to the most obscene looking building you have ever seen in your life. How the building was standing is still a mystery. The building was listing to one side. I'm not kidding. The staircase was like this. I had to pull my way up the banister to the second floor. And when he opened the door and I saw this apartment, I went into shock. The bathroom was so filthy. It was beyond filthy. And then it had this wooden board at the top of the edge of the tub. What it was there for, I don't know. And then he showed me the rest of the apartment, and I looked at this guy. This was a well-dressed, well-manicured man. He was casually dressed, but his clothes were expensive. He had a really nice haircut, clean-shaven, jewelry on his hands, good shoes on his feet. And it occurred to me that he saw me as a loser. And therefore, he had the right to show me the most callously run-down building I've ever seen in my life. Then he took me to another property, and that one was not anywhere near as bad, but it was the eyesore of the neighborhood. So then he took me to another building on Brook Street. And eventually, a tenant that was there who had serious mental health problems. He was a veteran. And he would march. He would put on his boots and he would march, back and forth, because I lived downstairs, he lived upstairs, for hours. And then he would take a stick or something heavy and bang on my door downstairs. He intercepted my mail. He intercepted my packages. So they moved me out of that apartment into another apartment across the hall. And one day I come home from being outside, and the whole ceiling had collapsed. He had beat on the pipes so badly that they erupted, and the whole ceiling came down into my kitchen. And the fire department had to come. The apartment was flooded, and the owner didn't come right away. And I remember the firefighter telling the owner of the property that when he gets a call from the fire department, he's supposed to respond immediately. It was apparent that he had taken his sweet time. So eventually I got out of there, but before I got out of there, he sent his maintenance people to remove all the copper tubing from the heating system. He hadn't paid the utility bill a number of times. There were notices all over the building advising the tenants. Now, this is a businessman. He also had a chauffeur, a limousine service. And if you looked at this guy, you would think he was class personified. He looked every inch a cool dude. And he was as callous as the North Pole is cold. And that was the beginning of my education that made me a community advocate, because then I saw other people going through the same thing. People of all ages and all social status. But mostly disabled, veterans, and the elderly, and children. It's just something that is so contradictory and so inhumane and so unconstitutional that you can't stop talking about it. It's like the stories that are on mainstream media. They repeat the stories for days, weeks, months at a time if it has a prolonged issue that hasn't been resolved. I've been talking about this on air for almost 15 years. Over a decade and a half, or a decade and a quarter, I should say. And there's been not one resolution. I've been moved, okay? I was allowed to move from the last place that I lived in prior to the one that I just recently moved from, because I almost died in that apartment due to indoor air pollution. So most people don't know about fighting for themselves, especially refugees and immigrants. They don't want to rock the boat. And the other thing is that they don't know what's being done to them because they don't know anything about housing codes. Then you have the American taxpayer who doesn't know that within our own government, there are entities who cover up for other cronies unconstitutional practices that impose themselves on the taxpayer dollar and the taxpayer-funded programs. And so the looting just continues. And I'm sorry to say, there's nobody that I can say that has ever lifted a finger or responded, not to me so much, but to the American people, to open that door. You know, all these secret societies that I've spoken about over the last couple of years, they started way back when, from the 1700s to the 1800s to the 1900s to this very moment in time. And these are the people. Every time there's a new graduating level of potential cronies, they're brought into these secret chambers and they literally sell their souls to keep the flow going. Because when one of these so-called human beings dies, the legacy is picked up by the next individual who signed on the dotted line, so to speak, to sell his soul or her soul to the company store, so to speak. All of these fraternities and sororities that I speak about a lot, that weed out by hook or by crook any potential threat, somebody who's ethical. You know, chug-a-lug, they die from alcohol poisoning. If it's a girl or a woman or a female, date rape. How how did it ever get to that level of higher education that you can teach some of the potential students who aspire to be this or that in one's community and country, that it is okay to be unconstitutionally minded? There appears to be no rehabilitation for these people that think that way, because they're in such a large perceived group of individuals that stretches across the planet, not just the city or the state or the country, but the planet, because they have links all across the planet. You know, if you watch enough NCIS, you get a sort of education. I know it's fictionalized, but it's got to be based in fact, because otherwise they would be sued for, you know, for defamation. And we have people who have been brought here decades before they become a part of the American community. They have the wherewithal to get into government, to get into high positions or trusted positions, only to betray that trust because they work for the other side. So these are all things that are either not disclosed or have been allowed to happen for so long that it's normal operating procedure. And our so-called protectors appear not to have enough ammunition to put a stop to it, or at least stem the flow. And that's what's happened here at City Hall. Mayor Gatzis is, to me, has run amok with his condescending, unconstitutional mindset. His appearance of treating a lot of the citizens of this community as some kind of expendable collateral to be used in exchange for whatever the need is, to supply another crony, another set of victims, to violate. You know, we have this aspartame thing that has been going on for over, I don't know, 30 years. There's aspartame victim support groups. Sick from aspartame, Donald Rumsfeld in June 1977 became Chief Executive Officer of Searle, a worldwide pharmaceutical company where he served until 1985. The turnaround there earned him awards as the outstanding Chief Executive Officer in the pharmaceutical industry in 1980 and 81. He, along with Robert Shapiro, was solely responsible for using their political muscle and graft to buy off the FDA and get NutraSweet approved, and are responsible for the death and disease caused. Now, as NutraSweet is another name for aspartame, which is the chemical the chemical name of aspartame is phenylalanine, phenylalanine, and it's also known as Sweet and Low, as Splenda. And you see all these ads on TV about these happy kitchen circumstances where they use Splenda to bake confections for their family. That turns it into poison in the human system. Also, MSG is another concern that doesn't appear to hold any concern for our government and all of the people that it affects. Diabetes. There is a list that is at least 2 pages long that lists the medical conditions exacerbated by the poisons of aspartame that are in pharmaceutical prescriptions, over-the-counter over-the-counter medications. Maybe I didn't bring it this time. But the legacy of aspartame ingestion is death. AspartameKills.com. You can go to any of these links and see it for yourself. There is a California Right to Know organization, carighttoKnow.org. They've passed Proposition 37, which would require labeling of genetically modified foods. And so it continues. These poisonings have killed millions of people worldwide. And there are worldwide advocates all over the planet. And in a lot of countries, Monsanto is no longer accepted. Their products are no longer accepted, especially when it comes to growing healthy foods for Mother Earth or poisoning Mother Earth herself. So it's a worldwide phenomenon of unconstitutionality and fraud and deliberate murder of human life and the planet itself, the animals, the very air that we breathe. This is a continuous sing-song of mine, because when you can no longer breathe on your own, you're in a lot of trouble. Your life will never be the same. It will never be the same. And if you find a physician or you have a physician who over-medicates you and you don't even know that you're being over-medicated, your body blows up into a human balloon. You look like Humpty Dumpty. Your skin hurts you from the inside out. You can't stand to have anything on your body because it hurts so much. So consider all these things when you vote for the next president, and see if he or she or they have in mind making some corrections, holding people like Donald Rumsfeld and his posse of murderers accountable for crimes against humanity. Please remember that freedom isn't free, and so long until next time.